Hi everybody, this is Tim Kraus. Today is September the 12th, 2023. Goodness, we're almost into October already. A couple things I want to make mention to you. We're going to have a video today that talks about Vindications. We're continuing in our series of Vindications. We're going to discover why William Branham's birth date is so important to Vindications. We're going to use the same methodology that we typically use. This is Isaiah 28:10. For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, here a little and there a little. Also 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 1, in the mouth of two or three witnesses shall every word be established. By the way, any of the links of any of the photos or any of the videos or any of the study notes or any of the links that we have up here for you, they'll be down in the description. All of that will be available for you on my Google Drive so you can take a look at it, see for yourself. But we want to ask a real quick question, and this is question number one. What is William Branham's birth date? Now there's some cause for concern. There's lots of questions about that. Let's look at some official instances of William Branham's birth date. Here is one on the application to marry Hope Bromback. This is when William Branham placed on this application that his birthday was April the 8th, 1908. Now this is an extract from that certificate. On my Google Drive, you'll be able to see a full copy of that application. So you'll be able to take a look at it for yourself. This is all publicly available documentation. But the birth date on that certificate is April the 8th. Oops, wait a minute. We have another marriage license. This one, the application to marry Meta Broy after Hope Bromback's death. This one, he tells us that his birth date was April the 6th, 1909. Now we have two birth dates. We have two separate birth dates. How about William Branham's sermons? Well, remember the stories about the astrologer, and you know that Scripture talks about astrology and how you're not to use astrology, and there's lots of videos that we talked about when, God wrote 3 Bibles, one in the zodiac. We talked about astrology. Here we have William Branham talking about an astrologer. Remember, an astrologer, someone who divines the future. Okay? She said, I'm an astrologist. Said, perhaps I will tell you just exactly when you was born. Would you believe me? And I said, you can't do it in the first place, see? She said, oh, yes, I can. I said, let's hear you. She said, you was born on April the 6th at 5 o'clock in the morning in 1909. William Branham said that in 1952 on July the 13th, the morning service, early spiritual experiences. Then again, he repeats the same story in 1960. This is February the 1st, a morning service, the revelation that was given to me. Here William Branham is again, and she said, you were born under that sign. Special sign, okay? And she said, what if I tell you when you were born? Would you believe me? I said, lady, you can't read my mind. I won't believe it. She said, you were born on April the 6th, 1909 at 5 o'clock in the morning. She said, that's when certain stars, she said, crossed or something. Okay? Again, that's William Branham's discussion about the astrologer. Both of those dates are April the 6th, 1909, just like the marriage application to Meta Broy. So now, but we have two birth dates. We've got one in 1908 and one in 1909 so far. Okay? Now, what about some of his sermons? What about some of William Branham's sermons? All right, let's take a look at that. Here we have William Branham in 1951. This is September the 29th. Our hope is in God. This is about Alexander Dowie and when he died. William Branham went to Zion, Illinois. You may remember Zion, Illinois was a city that Alexander Dowie, also someone who claimed to be a prophet in the Elijah who was to forerun the second coming of Christ, established Zion, Illinois for his followers, and so that's where William Branham visited. Okay, this is in 1951. This is September the 29th. This is William Branham speaking. And Brother Bosworth here is one of the greatest teachers on divine healing that I ever heard in my life. How I could speak of him, of how down through the ages, when I was a little boy in school, he was out here preaching the gospel and praying for the sick when I was just a boy. Your mothers and dads listened to him preach the gospel on divine healing, both of them out of Zion, Illinois, candidates or out from under the great teacher, late Dr. Dowie. How Dr. Dowie, in his death, prophesied that I would come to that city 40 years from the time that he died, not knowing nothing about it. He died one day, and I was born on the next. 40 years to the day I entered the city, not knowing nothing about it. Oh, how God's great move is coming together. I hear the sound of the abundance of rain. That's how William Branham explains his relationship to Dr. Dowie. Obviously, he wants to borrow the credibility of Alexander Dowie in his ministry as he moves forward. Okay? There's a Britannica article. I've put the link up here in the notes. Dowie died on March the 9th, 1907. So that means William Branham, according to this, would have been born on March the 10th, 1907. It was the day after he died. Remember, William Branham tells us that in this sermon. So now we have 3 birth dates. Okay, 1908, 1909, and here's 1907. Now here's a question. We get this all the time from people. Tim, you're talking about Vindications. Why does his birth date matter? Well, remember the story about the municipal bridge. Municipal bridge story was the one that Branham claims this is a vindication. He had a visitation from an angel. Then, a couple of days later, according to William Branham, he was given the vision about the municipal bridge. The angel of the Lord told him that he was going to have that vision. This is when he was a young boy. So let's take a look at that. This is William Branham for 1959. This is April the 19th, Los Angeles, California. My life story, William Branham speaking. I'm going to highlight some of the areas in this sermon. William Branham speaking. I was playing marbles out with my little brothers, plural, out in the front yard, and all at once I had a strange feeling come on me, and I stopped and sat down beside a tree, and we were up on the banks of the Ohio River, and I looked down towards Jeffersonville, and I seen a bridge rise up and go across the river, span the river, and I seen 16 men. I counted them that dropped off there and lost their lives on that bridge. I run in real quick and told my mother, and she thought I went to sleep. I run in real quick and told my mother. She thought I went to sleep, but they kept it in my mind. And 22 years from then, 22 years from the moment he had that vision, 22 years from then, the municipal bridge, now that many of you cross when you cross there, crossed the river at the same place, and 16 men lost their life building that bridge across the river. It's never failed to be perfectly true. Now, this is William Branham in 1948. This is March the 2nd. Experiences from Phoenix, Arizona. This is William Branham speaking here at the municipal bridge. Sister, no doubt you know where the municipal bridge is, don't you? Cross from Jeffersonville to Louisville. 22 years. Remember that? Keep that in mind. When I was a little boy, just a little bitty lad of 5 or 6 years old, when the angel of the Lord appeared in the bush, you've heard me tell that, haven't you, when I was packing water? Well, about 2 weeks after that, I was playing marbles with my little brother, this time one brother, okay? And I thought I got sick. Some real funny feeling came on me. And I went and sat down by the side of the tree, and I looked out at the river, and there went a bridge. A big, great big bridge going across the river, and I counted 16 men that fell off of that bridge and drowned. And I went and told Mother. And I told her I seen it, and they thought I was a little crazy or something. They thought I was just a little nervous, hysterical child. And 22 years from that time, on the same ground when the municipal bridge across and 16 men lost their lives on it. See, wasn't nothing that it's God sent it. Your prayers brought it. See? So here William Branham confirms a lot of the details. 22 years. He was a little boy. In this case, he says 5 or 6 years old. He was playing marbles with his brother, in this case, not brothers, plural. He ran in and he told his mother. So we have all of that in addition to the 16 men who were allegedly drowned. Okay? So let's do a real quick recap. 22 years from the moment that vision took place, that's when the bridge was completed. Okay? Branham claims to have been 5 or 6 years old when it occurred. He was playing marbles with a younger brother or brothers, depending upon which sermon you land on. He ran in and he spoke to his mother. Now, let's talk about some facts about the municipal bridge. And I left some links up here. One of them is Believe the Sign. The other one is from a website called bridgestunnels.com, location George Rogers Clark Memorial Bridge. George Rogers Clark Memorial Bridge is the one that's referred to as the municipal bridge that crosses the Ohio River from Louisville into Jeffersonville. 22 years earlier would have been October, the bridge was finished now on October 31st, 1929. 22 years earlier would have been October the 31st, 1907. Okay? Based on Branham's birth dates, Branham would have been, if you take March the 10th, 1907, worst case scenario for Branham. That's the one where he said Alexander Dowie died one day and I was born the next. March 10th, 1907, he wouldn't have been born yet. If you take the 1908 birth date, April 8th, 1908, he was 5 months old. Let's take the one that he spoke in his sermons and the one that he put on his marriage application to Meta Broy. He was born on April the 6th, 1909. He'd have been 17 months old. Now, we know for a fact that 2 people died at the municipal bridge while it was under construction. Neither of them drowned. You can go take a look at the Believe the Sign article on the municipal bridge. There are newspaper articles and a discussion about that. But we know that to be true as well. So some simple arithmetic, not even hardcore math, some simple arithmetic tells us that he was less than 2 years old in the best case. He wasn't even born in the worst case. But in the best case scenario, he was less than 2 years old. So how was Branham 5 or 6 years old? Because that's what he told us, right? How was Branham playing marbles at 17 months with his younger siblings, his younger brother or brothers, depending upon which sermon you land on? And how did he run in anywhere and tell his mother anything? See here, then, this is the important thing. It's not about the bridge, it's about the fraud. We're going to take a look at 3 videos from Message Minister Jason Watkins. This is August the 13th, 2023. BTS can talk about a bridge, a bear, and a cloud. This is Berry Coffee. This is the 5th of March, 2023. The bridge story is unprovable. We did a video, by the way, on this that talks about how provable the bridge is or isn't. You can go back and take a look at that video as well. Here we have Ron Spencer. Now, this is the 13th of March, 2022. It all happened the way the prophet said it. Okay, so let's take a look at those 3 and come back. Here we go.
You see, that's why it's such folly. It is such folly, these people running around, trying to believe or disbelieve the sign. And the sign to be believed is the word of God being fulfilled. What God said he would do, he said how the world would be at the end. He said, this is what I'll do right before I destroy it. And he did it, and we have it. So they can argue about a bridge and a cloud and a bear all they want to. That's just evidence. But I already have the proof of what he has done in this day.
A lot of these people who have left the message, they've focused on certain points that are unprovable because they existed or happened before Google existed. And they're unprovable. We were talking about the bridge. Peter and I were talking about the bridge many years ago and how many people actually fell off the bridge. And there's some different ideas about how many people actually fell off the bridge. Brother Branham said, I saw these men fall off the bridge. Back in the day, when they bridges across big rivers like that, they actually calculated human loss as a part of building the bridge. Because you know what? People fell off bridges. And when they fell off bridges, there was no way really to retrieve them. So if they couldn't swim, guess what? We had to hire somebody else because old Joe went down, And that was a factor in the cost, losing people because they fell off the bridge. That was not an uncommon thing. Brother Branham saw that, and he describes that in that vision and so forth. And sometimes people who they lead the message and create a website and say, well, Brother Branham didn't know exactly how much. He was 5 or 6, I think, when he saw the vision of the bridge. He was just a young boy, ran and told his mother. But that's unprovable.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord.
I was telling this story at a meeting, at a convention. And there was a man sitting, he was sitting about right where you are, Brother Jim. And he was sitting there, I could tell it was just bawling him. It was in my notes, so I told it. And so I went to the office, and this man charged into the office. I thought of the audacity that this man did. He just charges into the office. He was a preacher. He charges into the office and begins to contest the story that I just shared with you. And I said, you can't contest that. It happened. And then he begins to contest and go with that believe the sign nonsense. And he begins to tell me that all of the questions about Brother Branham and all of these things, about the finished boy and about the bridge and all of their nonsense and about the cloud. I said, it happened just like the prophet said it. Listen, he's either the truth or it's a lie. Well, he told it different in different places. In different places, there were certain pieces that needed to be told. I said a lot of things to that man, not beneficial to be spoke here. I charged him that he would have to face God with his lies. And every one of those that have come against the message of the hour, you didn't come against William Branham, Ed Biscoe, Ron Spencer, Donnie Reagan, Tim Pruitt. You came against God.
And what about our spiritualist, the astrologist? Okay? You were born on April the 6th, 1909 at 5 in the morning. That's when certain stars, she said, crossed or something. In the beginning of this, she says, you were born under that sign. So if you believe that birth date, he was born under a sign. What about the other birth dates? If he wasn't born on this date, he wasn't born under a special sign, right? So that blows that kind of out of the water. Certainly, you either got to believe the municipal bridge vision or you got to believe the astrologer, who basically tells us that he was born under a sign. And Branham used that significantly or repeatedly in his ministry, okay, to make sure that people knew he was born under that special sign because it was that date. If it wasn't that date, he wasn't born under that sign. But how about the other excuses and testimonies? We're going to look at a couple of more videos here. This is Donnie Reagan. It was in 2013. He says the Branham was 5 years old. He didn't have 100% recall. Okay? Here we got Jesse Smith more recently. This is January the 29th, 2020. Now this is his excuse. Somebody paid off the newspapers not to report the 16 deaths. If you go out to the Believe the Sign article, there were newspaper reports about the other deaths. By the way, it was public money. There was an engineering report, not just newspapers, but there was an engineering report that did not report the 16 deaths. They reported the 2 deaths, but not the 16 deaths. And that was public dollars that built that bridge. So there would have had an engineering report, public accountability. It would have been reviewed, blah, blah, blah. But according to Jesse Smith, now somebody just paid the newspapers off not to report the deaths. And then we've got Pearry Green's testimony regarding the bridge. There's a link here that takes you out to a YouTube video. Pearry Green tells us that he and William Branham spoke about that specific bridge and the span on that specific bridge. So these excuses that where people say, it was the other bridge, it was the bridge just downstream, or maybe it was the bridge in Australia, or maybe it was the bridge that was built earlier where there was a lot of people that died on that bridge. Okay? According to Pearry Green, William Branham pointed at the specific span that gave way when those 16 people fell into the water and drowned. So I'll let you go take a look at that at your convenience.
But if you look at these things without understanding and apply exactly the same principle. Now, Brother Branham was 5 years old when he had the vision of the bridge. You and I both know, more than likely, he was not able to remember that vision. So he must have told that vision to somebody. And they told him when he got older. And remember, when we hear Brother Branham repeating these visions and prophecies, none of us have ever seen the book that these visions were written down in.
Just so you know, I believe the sign says the bridge never happened. 16 men never fell to their deaths. The newspapers only say 2 men died, but not by falling. I'm sorry, one fell off and hit a scaffold, and one got hit by a hammer and died. But this man doesn't even go to Branham Tabernacle. He's from Jeffersonville. But they found him and interviewed him, and he remembers his parents talking about 16 people dying.
Right.
And the construction company covered it up because there was no unions at that time. And so they didn't want it getting out that 16 men fell to their death. And they paid those people off to quiet them down. They paid off the newspaper not to report it. It was before unions were there. That's what this man says. And he doesn't even go to Branham Tabernacle.
Right.
I think he's a banker or a lawyer or something like that. You can listen. It's a 15-minute video.
See, here's the thing. We can demonstrate with just one vindication, using his birthdays, that William Branham was a liar, a fraud, and a false prophet. Not according to me, but according to Scripture. Let's take a look at Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 20 through 22. But the prophet who dares to speak a message in my name that I have not commanded him to speak, or who speaks in the name of other gods, that prophet must die. Pretty harsh. Let's continue verse 21. You may say to yourself, how can we recognize a message the Lord has not spoken? Verse 22 answers that question. When a prophet speaks in the Lord's name, and the message did not come true or is not fulfilled. Remember, he said this was a visitation from the angel of the Lord. And he was given that vision from the angel of the Lord, or from the Lord. Okay? And the message does not come true or is not fulfilled or isn't true because his birth date doesn't fit to make it come to pass. That is a message the Lord has not spoken. The prophet has spoken it presumptuously. Do not be afraid of him. Then we've got 1 Samuel chapter 3, verses 19 through 20. And Samuel grew, and the Lord was with him, and did let none of his words fall to the ground. And all Israel from Dan even to Beersheba knew that Samuel was established to be a prophet of the Lord. Who knew? The entire nation of Israel. How did they know? The Lord let none of his words fall to the ground. All right. So what are our conclusions here? Let's tie this up. We really don't care which birth date you choose to accept that William Branham claimed as his own. Okay, we don't care. 1908, 1909, 1907, whatever. We don't care. Okay? There are some other ones we didn't bother to include. But those three are important dates, and we don't care which one you choose to believe. We don't care. Okay? It's not about the birth dates. Okay? We really don't care about the men who died on some other bridge other than the municipal bridge, because William Branham pointed to that specific bridge and claimed it as the one to Pearry Green that the people that people died on. Okay? And we really don't care how many excuses were given to Branham because of his age or recalling the incident, or he didn't have 100% recall. What we really care about is the absolute fraud that is another one of William Branham's early vindications. First of all, we had the cloud. He wasn't even there. The cloud took place in Flagstaff. He was supposed to have been on Rattlesnake Mesa, but down by Tucson. It appears that, however, from the factual evidence, from the documentation and Branham's own testimony, that he wasn't even there. He was in Houston, Texas, at the time that that was supposed to take place. Now we find out that he was not born, or he was less than 2 years old when he was supposed to have had this vision. 16 men didn't ground. It was that 22 years from the time that, that vision took place is when the bridge was completed, right? We don't care about the bridge. We care about the lie. We care about the fraud and the fact that everybody says this is a vindication of William Branham's ministry. That's a problem. Okay, we're going to talk about more vindications as we go through this, but I wanted to kind of bring up the birth date and follow that through for you today. God bless everybody. Thank you so much for the comments that we get. Anybody wants to know anything on the end card is going to give you information about how to get in contact with us. We're still waiting for ministers in the Phoenix area to reach out. We're available. Ron Peterson, Isaac Noriega, Gerald McGraw. We're available. Anybody who wants to get in contact with me. We look forward to seeing people when we're up in the Phoenix and the Tucson area. God bless everybody. I sure hope you're having a great 2023, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.